The Galactic Council chamber floated in the neutral space between star systems, a massive station where 200 species gathered to discuss the affairs of civilized worlds. Inside the great circular hall, representatives sat in pods arranged by the age of their membership. Humanity's pod was near the back, a position they had occupied for 32 years. Ambassador Minji Park stood in her pod, waiting for her turn to speak. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple style, and she wore the blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic service. She had given this same speech, with minor variations, 17 times before. The Galactic Council should consider economic partnerships instead of military expansion, Minji said, her voice calm and measured. Trade builds understanding between worlds. Weapons build only fear. Around the chamber, various aliens shifted in their seats. Some ignored her completely, checking data displays or speaking quietly with aides. Others watched with barely hidden amusement. The human ambassador always said things like this: peace, understanding, cooperation. It was what humans always talked about. In a pod near the front, Commander Zek Thor of the Kethrak Empire listened with cold interest. The Kethrak were a proud warrior species, their empire built through conquest of 17 lesser worlds. Zek Thor's scaled skin gleamed under the chamber lights, deep purple with patterns of gold that marked his military rank. The human speaks of peace again, Zek Thor whispered to his aide. Have they no pride? No strength? Our intelligence reports their military is minimal, the aide responded, pulling up data on a small screen. A few hundred ships, basic defensive platforms around their homeworld. They spend more on scientific research than weapons. Zek Thor made a sound deep in his throat. Something between amusement and contempt. In the Kethrak culture, a species that did not display military power was a species waiting to be conquered. Minji finished her proposal and sat down. The vote was quick. Her suggestion was rejected, as it always was. She showed no emotion, simply made a note on her datapad and settled back to listen to the rest of the session. After the council adjourned, Minji walked through the station's corridors toward the human quarters. She passed groups of other species, some nodding politely, others ignoring her completely. This was normal. Humanity had become background noise in galactic politics. She did not mind. Earth had its reasons for maintaining a low profile. Meanwhile, in the Kethrak section of the station, Zek Thor met with 3 other military commanders. They gathered in a secured room, speaking in low, serious tones. The Empire requires new resources, Zek Thor said. The Council has rejected our requests for expansion rights into the outer spiral territories. But there is another option. He activated a holographic display. It showed a blue and green planet, third from a yellow star. Earth, one of the other commanders said. The human homeworld. Exactly, Zek Thor replied. Look at the strategic value. Located at the intersection of 3 major trade routes. Rich in rare elements, and most importantly, defended by a species that talks of peace but shows no teeth. The Council would object, another commander noted. The Council objects to everything, Zek Thor said with a dismissive wave. By the time they finish debating, Earth will be ours. The humans will surrender quickly. They are not warriors. The commanders studied the data. Earth's defenses looked minimal. A few orbital stations, some patrol ships. Nothing that could stand against a full Kethrak battle fleet. When do we move? One asked. The fleet is already being assembled, Zek Thor said. We launch in 10 cycles. 2 weeks later, whispers began spreading through the council. The Kethrak were moving ships, a large fleet, heading toward human space. Some species debated whether to warn Earth. Others thought it was not their concern. A few believed the humans deserved what was coming for being so weak. An emergency council session was called. Minji stood in her pod again. But this time, Every representative was paying attention. Ambassador Park, the council speaker said, its translated voice echoing through the chamber. We have received intelligence that a Kethrak fleet is approaching your system. The council debates what action to take. Minji looked around the chamber. She saw concern on some faces, curiosity on others, and satisfaction on a few. She took a slow breath. Thank you for the warning, she said simply. I have already informed my government. Does Earth require assistance? The speaker asked. Perhaps a council peacekeeping force could be assembled. That will not be necessary, Minji replied. Her voice remained calm, almost gentle. But I do have one request. Yes? Please tell all council ships to move at least 20 light minutes away from Earth's system, for their own safety. The chamber erupted in confused murmuring. For their safety? What did that mean? The humans had no significant military. How could they pose any danger to council observers? Zekthor, watching from his pod, felt a flicker of something unfamiliar. It was not quite worry, but something close. The human ambassador showed no fear. She should be begging for help. Instead, she was warning others to stay back. This is absurd, Zekthor announced, standing. The human threatens no one. She speaks bold words because she has nothing else. Minji turned to look at him directly. Her expression was not angry. It was something else. Something that made the chamber grow quiet. Commander Zekthor, she said softly, Earth chose peace 32 years ago. We chose it deliberately. We chose it carefully. And we have maintained that choice every day since. She paused. Please understand what I am telling you. We chose peace. We were not forced into it. We did not accept it because we had no other option. More words, Zekthor scoffed. Words are all humans have. Zek, then I suppose you will discover if that is true, Minji said. She gave a slight bow to the council speaker. If you will excuse me. I must return to Earth. There are preparations to make. She left the chamber with quiet dignity. Behind her, the council dissolved into heated debate. Should they intervene? Should they watch? Should they do nothing? In the end, they decided to observe from a safe distance. Though many thought the human warning about distance was ridiculous paranoia. 5 days later, the Kethrak fleet entered Earth's outer system. 200 warships, armed with weapons that could crack continents. They moved in confident formation toward the small blue planet that looked so peaceful, so vulnerable. On the flagship, Zekthor stood on the command deck, watching the view screens. Earth hung in the distance, quiet and seemingly unprepared. Scan for defenses, he ordered. Detecting minimal platforms, sir, the sensor officer reported. Some orbital stations. A few dozen ships on patrol. Nothing significant. Zekthor smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Broadcast the surrender demand. Let them know mercy is still possible. The message went out across all frequencies. The Kethrak fleet waited for the panicked response. The desperate pleas for negotiation. What they got instead was silence. Then, slowly, something changed on the sensors. Sir, the sensor officer said, voice rising in confusion. I am detecting power signatures. Hundreds of them. They were not there a moment ago. What do you mean they were not there? Zekthor demanded. They were hidden, sir. Stealth systems. They are coming online now. I count over 2,000 separate defense platforms. And ships. So many ships. Sir, where did they all come from? On the view screens, space around Earth began to light up. Weapons, platforms that had been invisible moments before, now blazed with power. Ships that had been dark and cold now activated, their engines burning bright. And from Earth itself, a simple message broadcast on all channels, spoken in calm, measured tones. This is Earth Defense Command. You have entered our space with hostile intent. This is your only warning. Turn back now. Turn back now. Zekthor stared at the screens, his confidence draining away like water through his claws. This was not possible. The intelligence had been certain. Humanity was weak. Commander, his tactical officer said quietly. I recommend immediate withdrawal, but Zekthor's pride would not allow retreat. Not yet. He had come too far, in front of the entire empire. All ships, he ordered. Attack formation. Show these humans what real power looks like. The Kethrak fleet advanced toward Earth, and Earth, finally, awakened. The Kethrak fleet moved through space in attack formation. 200 warships, spreading into a pattern designed to overwhelm planetary defenses. On the flagship, Commander Zekthor watched the displays with forced confidence. Yes, there were more Earth defenses than expected, but numbers alone did not win battles. Experience did. Strength did. The Kethrak had conquered 17 worlds. One more would not be difficult. Forward ships, engage the outer defense platforms, he commanded. Focus fire. Destroy them one at a time. The lead Kethrak vessels opened fire. Brilliant beams of concentrated energy lanced across the darkness toward the nearest Earth platforms. The weapons were powerful enough to burn through any known shielding. The beams struck the platforms and reflected away, harmlessly. What? Zekthor leaned forward. What is that? Shielding. Unknown type, sir, the tactical officer reported, confusion clear in his voice. Our weapons are not penetrating. Before Zekthor could respond, the Earth platforms returned fire. What happened next happened very, very fast. The platforms did not fire single beams. They fired synchronized volleys. Hundreds of weapons functioning as one coordinated system. The targeting was not random. It was surgical. Each Kethrak ship was struck in 3 precise locations simultaneously. Engines, weapons, and command systems. 10 Kethrak ships went dark in the first 5 seconds. Evasive maneuvers! Zekthor shouted. All ships scatter, but the Earth Defense Network had already calculated every possible evasive pattern. As Kethrak ships tried to dodge, they found weapons fire waiting exactly where they moved. It was like fighting an opponent who knew what you would do before you did it. 20 more ships lost power. Their systems flickered and died, leaving them floating helplessly in space. They are not destroying us, the tactical officer said, reading the damage reports. They are disabling us. Precision strikes to non-lethal systems. Zekthor felt cold fear for the first time in his military career. An enemy that could destroy, but chose to disable, was an enemy that was toying with you, playing with you, showing you how completely you were outmatched. Where are their ships? He demanded. Stop shooting at platforms. Find their actual fleet. The sensor officer worked frantically at his console. Sir, I have them. They are everywhere. They were hiding in the debris fields, the asteroid belt, behind the moons, stealth systems like nothing in our database. I count over 500 ships, and the number keeps growing as more appear. On the main view screen, space around the Kethrak fleet seemed to shimmer. Ships faded into visibility like ghosts becoming solid. They were sleek, angular, covered in dark plating that absorbed sensor scans, and every single one was already in perfect firing position. This is Earth Defense Command, the calm voice broadcast again. You have ignored our warning. Cease your attack immediately, or we will be forced to neutralize your entire fleet. Zekthor's pride burned hot in his chest. Neutralize? His entire fleet? The arrogance. All weapons, fire at will, he commanded. Kill them all. The Kethrak fleet unleashed everything it had. Missiles, energy beams, plasma cannons. The combined firepower could have wiped out a small moon. The Earth ships moved. They moved like nothing Zekthor had ever seen. Like water flowing around rocks. Like wind shifting through trees. Every Kethrak weapon found only empty space, where a target had been milliseconds before. The Earth ships did not just dodge. They moved with such perfect timing that it seemed choreographed, like a deadly dance performed by hundreds of ships as one. And while they moved, they fired back. Earth weapons were different from anything the Kethrak had encountered. They did not rely purely on energy or explosives. Some fired projectiles that moved faster than missiles. Some used focused electromagnetic pulses that shut down systems without physical damage. Others deployed clouds of microscopic machines that attached to hulls and disabled equipment from the outside. The variety was overwhelming. Every time the Kethrak adapted to one weapon type, another different kind struck them. 50 ships, 70, 100. The Kethrak fleet was being taken apart piece by piece, and not a single Earth vessel had been destroyed. In the command center on Earth, Admiral Sarah Chen watched the battle displays with focused attention. She sat at the center of a semicircular array of screens, dozens of officers working at stations around her. The room was quiet, except for the efficient exchange of information. Kethrak flagship is attempting to break away, one officer reported. Let it go, Admiral Chen said calmly. Disable the escort ships, but leave them a clear path to retreat. When they run, others will follow. Admiral, permission to speak freely? A younger officer asked. Chen nodded. We could end this in minutes. Complete destruction. Why are we holding back? Admiral Chen turned to look at the officer. Her face was serious but not unkind. Because we are not trying to destroy them, Lieutenant. We are teaching them. There is a difference. On the flagship, Zeke-Thor watched his fleet dying around him. Not actually dying, which somehow made it worse. Disabled, captured, humiliated. His ship rocked as another precise strike took out the main weapons array. Commander, we must retreat, his second-in-command said urgently. We have already lost half the fleet. If we stay, we lose everything. Zeke-Thor wanted to refuse. Wanted to fight until the end. But he was not a fool. This was not a battle. This was an execution. Being performed slowly, carefully, to make a point. All ships, he said, the words tasting like ash. Retreat. Emergency jump. Now. The remaining Kethrak vessels that still had working engines turned away from Earth. They jumped to faster-than-light travel, in ragged disorder, fleeing for their lives. The Earth ships did not pursue. Admiral Chen watched the Kethrak fleet scatter on her displays. Status report. 0 Earth casualties, an officer reported. Minimal damage to 3 orbital platforms, already being repaired. We disabled 147 Kethrak vessels. 53 escaped, all damaged. Begin recovery operations, Chen ordered. Get medical teams to the disabled ships. Treat their wounded. Prepare for prisoners of war. Admiral, another officer said. We are receiving transmissions from the Galactic Council. Multiple species, requesting permission to enter the system. They want to observe the aftermath. Chen allowed herself a small smile. Of course they did. The whole galaxy had just watched Earth dismantle a major military power in less than an hour. Tell them they may approach, but all weapon systems must be powered down. This is still a secure zone. Yes, Admiral. Chen stood and walked to the main view screen. Earth hung there. Blue and green and beautiful. Peaceful. She had hoped they would never need to do this, hoped that 32 years of quiet diplomacy would be enough. But when peace failed, you protected what mattered. You showed your strength, not through aggression, but through absolute control. Through the discipline to win without becoming a monster in the process. Open a channel to Ambassador Park at the council station, she said. A moment later, Minji's face appeared on a side screen. She looked tired but composed. Ambassador, Chen said. The situation is contained. The Kethrak are retreating. We are treating their wounded and taking prisoners according to interstellar law. Thank you, Admiral, Minji replied. How many died? On our side? None. On theirs? We kept it to 0 as well. Minji closed her eyes briefly. Good. That matters. That matters very much. The council is going to have questions, Chen said. Yes, Minji agreed. They are going to have many questions. About where all these ships came from. About why we hid our strength. About what else we might be hiding. And what will you tell them? Minji looked directly at Chen through the screen. The truth. That, we learned very hard lessons about war before we ever left our own planet. That we built our military not to conquer, but to ensure we would never be victims. And that we chose peace, not because we had to, but because we wanted to. Will they believe that? Chen asked. After today? Minji said softly. After they saw us win without killing? I think some of them will. I hope some of them will. The transmission ended. Chen turned back to her officers. There was still much work to do. Prisoners to process. Damaged ships to secure. Reports to file. But the battle was over. Earth had shown its strength. Now came the harder part. Showing its wisdom. In the council chamber, representatives from 200 species sat in shocked silence, watching the sensor recordings play over and over. The Kethrak fleet had been destroyed. No, not destroyed. Disabled, defeated without deaths, and humanity, quiet humanity that everyone ignored, had done it with terrifying efficiency. The whispers had already begun. Fearful whispers. Confused whispers. What are humans really capable of? Someone asked. No one had an answer. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so full. Every species had sent representatives, and many had come in person rather than through holographic projection. They needed to see each other's faces, needed to confirm they were not alone in their shock. Ambassador Minji Park stood in the human pod, waiting. She had been waiting for 2 hours, while various species debated, argued, and demanded explanations. Her expression remained calm, though she knew the storm was coming. Finally, the council speaker called for order. Ambassador Park, it said. The council requires explanation. Where did your military come from? How long have you hidden your true strength? And most importantly, what are your intentions now? Minji stepped forward, every eye in the chamber fixed on her. To answer your questions properly, she said, I must tell you a story about Earth. About who we were. Before we reached the stars, she activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the center of the chamber, visible to all. 300 years ago, Earth was divided into nearly 200 separate nations. We spoke thousands of different languages, followed different beliefs, and we fought each other constantly. The images showed battles. Ancient ones with swords and spears, more recent ones with rifles and tanks. The council representatives leaned forward, watching. We called them world wars. Minji continued. Conflicts that consumed entire continents. In our First World War, 17 million died. In our Second World War, 70 million. We developed weapons that could destroy cities in single explosions. We came within minutes of destroying our entire planet. She paused, letting that sink in. We nearly killed ourselves, she said quietly. Not because we were attacked by aliens or faced an extinction event, simply because we could not stop fighting each other. A new image appeared, a mushroom cloud rising over a city. This is what we learned, Minji said. That weapons are easy to build. That destruction is simple. That killing is the easiest thing in the universe. But stopping the killing, building peace, that is hard. That requires wisdom we had to earn through blood and fire. The council chamber was completely silent now. When we finally unified, Minji continued. When we finally reached the stars and discovered the galaxy was full of other species, we made a choice. We decided we would not bring our violence with us. We would be different. Better. But you did bring weapons, someone called out. Massive numbers of weapons. Weapons that defeated the Kethrak in an hour. Yes, Minji agreed. Because we also learned another lesson. Peace is a choice, but someone must be strong enough to protect it. Our history taught us that weakness invites aggression, so we built our military. We made ourselves strong, and then we chose not to use that strength, unless we had no other choice. We made ourselves 5. We have to 1, she gestured, and the display changed. It showed Earth's 32 years in the Galactic Council. Every peace proposal Minji had made, every diplomatic effort, every attempt at cooperation that had been ignored or rejected. For 3 decades, we tried, she said. We offered friendship, partnership. We spoke for peace at every opportunity. We hoped the galaxy would accept us as we were, without needing to see our weapons. But you were testing us, a council member accused. Watching to see what we would do. No, Minji said firmly. We were hoping we could all be better together. That hope was genuine, but we were not naive. We remembered our own history. We knew that bullies exist in every species, on every world. So yes, we were prepared. Another representative stood. How much did you hide? How much more do we not know? Minji considered the question carefully. I will not give you exact numbers or technical specifications. That would be foolish. But I will tell you this. What you saw was enough to defend Earth. It was not everything we can do. A ripple of fear went through the chamber. Are you threatening the council? The speaker asked. No, Minji said. I am being honest with you. For 32 years, you thought you knew humanity. You were wrong. Now you know we are stronger than you believed, but you do not yet know the most important thing about us. And what is that? Minji's voice was soft but clear. The display changed again. It showed Kethrak prisoners being treated in Earth medical facilities, disabled ships being carefully salvaged, wounded aliens receiving the same care as human personnel. We could have destroyed the Kethrak fleet, Minji said. Every single ship, every single life. We had the power to do so. But we chose differently. We chose to disable instead of destroy. To capture instead of kill. Because the lesson we learned from our own wars is this. Victory, without mercy, creates only more war. She looked around the chamber, meeting as many eyes as possible. Yes, we are dangerous, she said. Every species that survives to reach space is dangerous. You all have weapons. You all have militaries. The question is not whether we are dangerous. The question is what we choose to do with that danger. Captain Li Taeyang sat in his ship's command chair, watching Earth grow larger on the view screen as they returned from the engagement. His strike force had been responsible for the flanking maneuver that cut off the Kethrak retreat route. They had disabled 43 ships, without a single casualty on either side. His second officer approached. Captain, we are receiving a transmission from one of the Kethrak ships we disabled. Their commander wants to speak with you. Put it through, Li said. The screen changed to show a Kethrak officer. His scales dulled with pain and exhaustion. His ship had been boarded. His crew taken into custody. By all rights, he should be angry, defiant. Instead, he looked confused. Human captain, the Kethrak said. Why are you healing us? We came to conquer your world. We would have killed you all if we could. Why do you treat our wounds? Li considered the question. It was a good question. An important one. Because you lost, he said simply. The battle is over. Now you are just people who need help. That is how we choose to be. I do not understand, the Kethrak said. Perhaps, Li agreed. But our way seems to work. You attacked us. We defended ourselves. Now the fighting is done. What would we gain by being cruel to you? The Kethrak had no answer to that. Back in the council chamber, the debate continued. Some species argued that humanity should be restricted, their military monitored. Others suggested that Earth should be made the galaxy's primary defense force. A few even proposed that humans should lead the council, given their obvious power. Minji listened to all of it, then raised her hand for silence. "We decline," she said. "Decline what?" the speaker asked. "All of it," Minji replied. "We do not want to lead you. We do not want to be your soldiers. We do not want to be feared, or restricted, or elevated above others. We want what we have always wanted, to be partners." "But your power," someone began. "Our power is ours to manage," Minji interrupted gently. "We will not use it to conquer. We will not use it to intimidate. We will use it only to defend. That is our choice. And we ask you to respect it." The council speaker was quiet for a long moment. Then it said, "And if another species attacks their neighbors, will Earth intervene?" Minji took a breath. This was the crucial question. "If we are asked for help," she said, "and if the cause is just, we will consider it. But we will not become the galaxy's police force. We will not decide for you what is right and wrong. Every species must make their own choices. We will make ours." "That is not enough," someone argued. "You have power. You have responsibility to use it." "We have responsibility to use it wisely," Minji corrected. "And wisdom means knowing when not to use it. We learned that lesson, at great cost. We will not forget it." She gestured to the display one more time. It showed Earth as seen from space. Blue, and green, and peaceful. "That world down there nearly died because its people thought strength meant dominance," she said. "We will not make that mistake again. We are strong. Yes. But we are strong so that we can choose peace. So that we can defend what matters, without becoming what we defend against." The chamber was silent. "We are human," Minji said softly. "We have been monsters before. We remember what that felt like. We remember what it cost. And we have chosen to be something better. That is who we are. That is who we will remain." She sat down. The council debated for 3 more hours. But the conversation had changed. The fear remained. But now, there was something else mixed with it. Respect, understanding, and for some species, hope. Perhaps, they thought, if humanity could learn such hard lessons and emerge better for it, perhaps there was hope for all of them. In orbit around Earth, the disabled Kethrak ships waited for transport back to their territory. The crews had been treated well. Their wounded had been healed. Many of them struggled to understand why. In their culture, the defeated suffered. That was the way of things. But humans seemed to have a different way. A strange way. A better way, some of them were beginning to think. Though they would not say so aloud. Not yet. The galaxy was learning who humanity really was. Not the quiet species that could be ignored. Not the weak species that could be bullied. But something more complicated, more interesting, more dangerous and more hopeful at the same time. They were learning that humans were the species that became strong enough to choose peace. And that was perhaps the most frightening strength of all. The meeting took place on a neutral station, far from both Earth and the Kethrak Empire. The station was old. Built by a species long gone from the galaxy. Maintained now by the Council as a place for difficult negotiations. Its walls were scarred from age, but still solid. A good place for hard conversations. Ambassador Minji Park arrived with Admiral Sarah Chen and a small diplomatic team. They wore simple uniforms, carried no visible weapons. They did not need to. Everyone knew what Earth was capable of now. The Kethrak delegation arrived an hour later. Commander Zekthor led them, though he had been demoted to just commander after the disaster at Earth. 3 other Kethrak officials accompanied him, along with guards who looked nervous. They met in a large round room with a table at its center. Observation galleries above held representatives from dozens of council species. The entire galaxy wanted to see what terms Earth would demand from their defeated enemy. Minji and Chen sat on one side. Zekthor and his people sat across from them. For a long moment, no one spoke. The silence was heavy with expectation. Finally, Zekthor spoke. His voice was rough, strained with wounded pride. "We are here to discuss the terms of our surrender. Your ceasefire," Minji corrected gently. Zekthor's scales rippled with confusion. "Then what do you want?" Chen activated a holographic display above the table. It showed a simple map of the region of space between Earth and the Kethrak Empire. "These are our terms," she said. "First, all Kethrak military ships will withdraw from Council-protected space. Second, you will pay reparations for the ships and platforms you damaged, in resources or labor, over a period of 20 years. Third, a demilitarized zone will be established between our territories, monitored by neutral council observers." She paused. "That is all." The Kethrak delegation stared at her. Zekthor leaned forward. "That is all? No occupation of our worlds? No seizure of our resources? No. Revenge? No," Minji said simply. "Why not?" Zekthor demanded. The question burst from him with genuine confusion. "You defeated us completely. You could demand anything. You could take our empire apart piece by piece. Why would you not?" Why? 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 Would you not? Minji folded her hands on the table. "Because what would that accomplish? You would hate us. You would rebuild in secret, waiting for revenge. Your children would grow up hearing stories of human cruelty. In 50 years or 100, we would fight again, and more people would die." "That is the way of war," Zekthor said. "That is the way of stupid war," Chen corrected, her voice sharp. "We learned the difference." She changed the display. It now showed images from Earth's history. Cities destroyed, populations displaced. The aftermath of human wars. "This is what victory without mercy looks like," Chen said. "After our First World War, the winners crushed the losers, took everything, humiliated them, and 20 years later, they had an even bigger war because the defeated wanted revenge." She changed the image again. This time it showed something different. People rebuilding together. Former enemies, working side by side. "After our Second World War, we tried something new," Chen continued. "The winners helped the losers rebuild. They gave aid instead of taking revenge. They created partnerships instead of impositions. And it worked. Former enemies became allies. The cycle of violence ended." Zekthor studied the images. "Your species fought itself so many times?" "Yes," Minji said quietly. "We are very good at war. We had thousands of years of practice. And every time, we thought the same thing. That crushing the enemy completely would bring peace. And every time, we were wrong." One of the other Kethrak officials spoke up. "But you had the power. You had us helpless. Most species would take that opportunity. Most species have not made the mistakes we have," Minji replied. "We paid for our wisdom in blood. Now we are trying to use that wisdom to make better choices." Chen pulled up new documents. "Here are the specific terms. Reparations calculated fairly based on actual damage. The demilitarized zone has equal space on both sides, so neither of us is disadvantaged. Council observers will be chosen by both parties together, so both trust them." She looked at Zekthor. "We are not trying to hurt you. We are trying to make sure this does not happen again." Zekthor looked at the terms. He read them carefully, his claws tracing over the data pad. His expression was difficult to read, but something had changed in his eyes. The arrogance was gone, but so was the fear. Now there was just, "These terms are more generous than we deserve," he said finally. "Perhaps," Minji agreed. But peace is not about what people deserve. It is about what works. Harsh terms might feel satisfying, but they would not work. These terms might work. In the observation gallery above, the council representatives watched in silence. Many had come expecting to see Earth demonstrate dominance, to see humans reveal their true nature as conquerors. This was not what they expected. A delegate from the Scythian collective leaned toward a colleague. "The humans confuse me," she whispered. "They win completely, then ask for almost nothing. Is this strategy or foolishness?" "I am beginning to think," her colleague replied slowly. Back at the table, Zekthor looked at his fellow delegates. They had a hurried, whispered conversation in their own language. Then he turned back to Minji and Chen. "We accept your terms," he said. "But I have a question. A personal question." "Ask," Minji said. "When I led my fleet to your world, I thought you were weak. I thought your peace was cowardice. I was wrong, clearly. But I want to understand. Why did you not show your strength before? Why did you let us think you were helpless?" Minji considered the question. "It was a fair one, because we hoped we would never need to show it," she said. "Every time we reveal our weapons, we make the galaxy a little more afraid, a little more military. We wanted to encourage peace by being peaceful, not by being threatening. But that did not work," Zekthor said. "It led to this war." "No," Chen said firmly. "Your choice to attack led to this war. We did not make you come to Earth. You decided we were weak, and that made us targets. That was your decision." Zekthor's scales darkened with shame. "You are right. We saw peace, and thought it meant weakness. This is what we were taught." Then perhaps," Minji said gently. "This is an opportunity to learn something new." She activated another display. This one showed plans, infrastructure, trade routes, technology exchanges. "These are proposals," she said. "Not demands. Proposals. If the Kethrak Empire is interested, Earth would like to establish trade partnerships. We have technology, you do not. You have resources we need. We could help each other." Zekthor looked at the proposals with clear surprise. "You would trade with us? After we attacked you?" "You lost," Chen said. "You are no longer a threat. Why would we refuse to trade? Trade builds connections. Connections build understanding. Understanding builds peace." "You are very strange," Zekthor said. But this time, there was something almost like respect in his voice. "In our empire, we would never forgive such an attack." "We are not forgiving it," Minji said. "You will pay reparations. You will withdraw your military. You will accept the demilitarized zone. But once you have done these things, we can move forward. The past cannot be changed. The future can." Admiral Chen stood and extended her hand across the table. "Do we have an agreement, Commander?" Zekthor looked at the hand. In human culture, this was a gesture of peace, of agreement. In Kethrak culture, touching someone from a rival power was a sign of trust. He hesitated. Then, slowly, he reached out and clasped Chen's hand. "We have an agreement." The observation gallery erupted in murmurs. Some species were shocked. Others were impressed. A few seemed disappointed. There would be no ongoing conflict to profit from. The meeting continued for several more hours, working out specific details, numbers, timelines, procedures for monitoring the demilitarized zone. It was boring, technical work, but it was the work of peace, and both sides engaged with it seriously. Finally, as the session was ending, one of the younger Kethrak officials spoke up. "Ambassador Park, may I ask something?" "Of course," Minji said. "You showed such power against our fleet. Such perfect coordination. Such advanced technology. How long have you had these capabilities?" Minji smiled slightly. since before we joined the council. But that was 32 years ago. Yes, the officials struggled with that. You had all this power for 3 decades and never used it? Never even showed it? We showed our power in other ways, Minji said. Through science. Through art. Through the ideas we shared. Through the peace we promoted. Military strength is just one type of power. We tried to use other types first, and when that did not work, then we used what was necessary to protect ourselves, Minji replied. But only what was necessary. Nothing more. She stood, signaling the meeting was over. The formal documents will be prepared for signing in 3 days. Until then, I hope you will consider the trade proposals. We believe cooperation benefits everyone more than continued hostility. The delegations filed out. In the corridors, Zekthor walked slowly. His mind clearly working through everything he had heard. Commander, one of his aides said quietly. The humans had us completely defeated. They could have taken everything. Why did they not? Zekthor thought about the images Chen had shown. The human wars. The human choices. The human lessons learned through terrible cost. Because, he said slowly, they actually meant what they said. Peace is not a strategy for them. It is not a trick. It is what they genuinely want. That seems foolish, the aide said. Does it? Zekthor asked. They destroyed our fleet in an hour. They could destroy our homeworld if they wished. But instead, they offer us trade partnerships. Tell me, which approach makes them more powerful? Fear, which makes us want revenge? Or mercy, which makes us question everything we believed? The aide had no answer. High above in the observation gallery, the council delegates were having similar conversations. The galaxy was beginning to understand something profound. Earth had not just won a military victory. They had demonstrated something far more important. They had shown that strength and wisdom could coexist. That you could be deadly and still choose mercy. That real power included knowing when not to use it. It was a lesson the galaxy had not seen in a very long time, and some wondered if they could learn it themselves. 3 months after the battle, the Galactic Council convened for its regular session. The atmosphere in the chamber was different now. Subtle changes, but everyone felt them. The human pod was no longer at the back. It had been moved forward to a position of respect. And when Ambassador Minji Park entered, representatives nodded to her. Some even stood briefly in greeting. Minji noticed but did not acknowledge it directly. She simply took her seat and prepared for the session. Humans were not here to dominate the council. They were here to participate. The speaker called the session to order. First item of business: the trade dispute between the Valorian Republic and the Cheskai Federation. Both parties have filed complaints. Ambassador Park. The council requests your mediation. Minji stood. I will meet with both parties and attempt to find common ground. It was accepted immediately. No debate. No objections. This was new. Before the incident with the Kethrak, her offers to mediate would have been politely declined. Now, they were welcomed. She sat down. Across the chamber, she caught the eye of a Valorian delegate. The Valorian nodded slightly, a gesture of respect. Minji nodded back. The session continued. Another species proposed military expansion into a contested region. Before the Kethrak incident, such proposals usually passed with little debate. The stronger species took what they wanted. That was how it worked. But today, several species spoke against it. They referenced Earth's approach. They talked about cooperation instead of conquest. The proposal was voted down. Minji watched this with quiet satisfaction. They were learning. Not because Earth forced them, because Earth had shown them a different path was possible. During a break, 3 ambassadors approached her. One was from a species humanity had barely interacted with before. Ambassador Park, the species said through its translator. My government wishes to discuss defense cooperation. We are a small system. We have concerns about larger neighbors. We would like to learn from Earth's example. I would be happy to speak with you, Minji replied. But I should be clear. Earth will not become your military protector. We can share defensive strategies. Help you build your own capabilities. But you must defend yourselves. The ambassador looked disappointed but nodded. We understand. That is still more than we had hoped for. Another ambassador, from the Scythian collective, spoke next. There is a question many of us have been afraid to ask. Ask it, Minji said. What if a council member attacks another council member? Would Earth intervene? It was the crucial question. The one everyone wanted answered, but no one dared ask directly. Minji took her time responding. It would depend on the circumstances. If the attack is clearly aggressive, if the victim requests help, if other solutions have failed, then yes, we might intervene. But not to conquer the aggressor. To stop the conflict. And only as a last resort. That is not very specific, the Scythian said. No, Minji agreed. And it should not be. Specific rules get followed in letter while violating the spirit. Vague guidelines require judgment, require thought. That is intentional. The third ambassador, a Kethrak, stepped forward. It was not Zek Thor, but a different official, sent specifically to work with the council. Ambassador Park, the Kethrak said, I bring a message from my government. The first payment of reparations has been prepared. Also, we would like to accept the trade partnership Earth proposed, if the offer still stands. It does, Minji said. She allowed herself a small smile. I am glad. I think both our peoples will benefit. There is something else, the Kethrak continued. Something personal. Commander Zekthor asked me to tell you. He is retiring from military service. He says he has much to learn about peace, and would like to study Earth's history. He requests permission to visit your world as a civilian. Minji was surprised. He would be welcome. Does your government approve? Minji was about it, our father. They do, the Kethrak said. They think it wise. Many in the Empire are reconsidering old beliefs. Your approach has made us think about our own choices. After the break, the council session resumed. The speaker announced that 4 long-standing territorial disputes had been resolved through negotiation instead of force. Trade agreements between former rivals were being signed. Military budgets were being reduced in favor of scientific cooperation. Not everywhere, not all at once, but it was beginning. Change was happening. At the end of the session, Minji returned to the human quarters in the station. Admiral Chen was there, reviewing reports from Earth's defense forces. How was the session? Chen asked. Productive, Minji replied. She sat down with a tired sigh. They are listening now. Actually listening. Is that good or bad? Chen asked. Both, Minji said. It is good that they respect us. It is concerning that it took a show of force to earn that respect. I still wish we could have achieved this through pure diplomacy. Chen looked at her. We tried that for 32 years. Sometimes you have to show people you are strong before they will listen to your ideas about peace. I know, Minji said. It just seems backward. Having to prove we could destroy them before they would trust us not to. That is the galaxy we live in, Chen replied. But maybe we can help make it better. Chen replied. A message appeared on Minji's screen. It was from Earth. From the civilian government. They wanted her input on a new proposal. Several species had requested Earth's help in establishing a council defense force, not controlled by any one species, designed purely for mutual protection. They want us to help create something bigger than ourselves, Minji said, reading through the proposal. A joint force that defends all council members equally. That could work, Chen said thoughtfully. If it is done right. If no one species controls it. If it is truly defensive, it would mean sharing our technology, Minji said. Making other species as strong as us. Yes, Chen agreed. But strong in a good way. strong enough to defend themselves, strong enough to not need to attack others. Minji looked at Chen. You would support this? I would, Chen said. We never wanted to be the galaxy's only military power. We just wanted to be safe. If we can make everyone safe together, that is better. Minji sent a reply to Earth. She would present the proposal to the Council. She would help build this new system. It would be complicated. It would take years, but it could work. Back on Earth, in the city where Minji had grown up, a school was having a special assembly. The children sat in rows, looking up at a screen. On the screen, Commander Zekthor appeared, speaking from the Kethrak homeworld. Hello, he said in careful, practiced English. I am speaking to you from very far away. I wanted to tell you about something I learned. I learned that I was wrong about many things. I thought strength meant making others afraid. I thought peace meant weakness. Your planet taught me different. The children watched, fascinated. An alien commander, defeated by their world, now speaking to them about peace. I am coming to visit your world soon, Zekthor continued. I want to learn your history. I want to understand how you became so strong and so peaceful at the same time. I hope that my people can learn to be the same way. He paused. If you are watching this, young humans, remember something. You are born into a species that learned very hard lessons. Your ancestors made terrible mistakes, but they also learned from them. That makes you very lucky and very responsible. Do not forget what your world learned. Do not forget the cost of that wisdom. The transmission ended. The teacher stood up to discuss it with the children. They had questions. Many questions. About war and peace. About strength and mercy. About how to be powerful and kind at the same time. They were the questions humanity had been asking for centuries. And now other species were beginning to ask them too. In the council chamber, months later, the Joint Defense Force proposal was voted on. It passed with overwhelming support. The force would be called the Mutual Protection Alliance. It would take 2 years to build. Earth would contribute technology and training but would not lead it. No one species would lead it. Minji watched the vote with quiet satisfaction. This was better than Earth, standing alone as the galaxy's protector. This was everyone working together. A young human officer approached her after the vote. Dr. Kim Ji-woo. Part of the new cultural exchange program, Earth had established with 17 different species. Ambassador, Ji-woo said. I have the quarterly report. We now have exchange programs with 34 species. Thousands of aliens visiting Earth, thousands of humans visiting other worlds. The response has been very positive. Good, Minji said. Military strength protects us, but cultural exchange connects us. We need both. She looked around the council chamber. So much had changed in just a few months. Not everything. Some species still distrusted humanity. Some still feared them. But the conversation had changed. The possibilities had expanded. That night, Minji stood at the observation window in her quarters. Earth hung in the distance, blue and beautiful, peaceful. She thought about all the battles humanity had fought, the wars they had survived, the lessons they had learned, the choice they had made to be better. And she thought about the Kethrak fleet, arriving with confidence, expecting easy conquest. She thought about the fear in Zekthor's voice when he realized what humanity really was. They had shown their strength. They had won their battle. But more importantly, they had shown their character. They had won without becoming monsters. They had protected themselves without becoming destroyers. That was the real victory. Not the disabled ships, not the military dominance, but the proof that you could be deadly and still choose mercy. That you could be powerful and still want peace. Other species were watching now, learning, considering their own choices. Perhaps, Minji thought, That was humanity's real gift to the galaxy. Not technology or weapons or military tactics, but the example of a species that learned to be strong enough to choose peace. It was not a perfect solution. There would be more conflicts, more challenges. The galaxy was vast and complicated, but it was a beginning. And sometimes, a beginning was enough. Outside the window, a ship passed by. It had the markings of the Mutual Protection Alliance. Inside were officers from 7 different species, training together, learning to defend the Council as one unified force. Humanity's military was already beginning to scale back. Not abandoning defense, but no longer carrying the burden alone. Sharing it. Building something better together. Minji smiled slightly. They had awakened fiercely when they needed to. But now, they could rest again. Watch. Help others become strong enough to stand together. That was the galaxy she wanted to live in. A galaxy where strength existed, but was used wisely. Where peace was not weakness, but choice. They were not there yet, but they were moving in the right direction. And that, she thought, was all anyone could really ask for. She turned from the window and went back to work. There were trade negotiations to review, cultural exchange programs to approve, defense cooperation agreements to finalize, the work of peace. Boring, detailed, complicated work, but important work. The kind of work that built a better galaxy. One careful choice at a time. Behind her, Earth continued its patient orbit. Quiet again, peaceful again. But now the galaxy understood what lay beneath that peace, and they respected it. Some feared it. Some admired it. Some wanted to learn from it. All of them understood it. Humanity had shown the galaxy who they were. Not through words, but through actions. Through the choice to be strong and merciful, powerful and wise. And the galaxy would not forget. Retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.